Welcome to the Smithers Insight Podcast, the place for trends, tech, and insights driving the global markets. From sustainable solutions to smart innovations, we unpack it all. Hello, and welcome to the next instalment of the Smithers Insight Podcast. Today I'm joined with Alexander Koukoulas. Hi, Alex.
Hello, Eve. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Doing wonderfully. Happy New Year to you.
And to you. I wonder if you could kick us off by just giving us a bit of an overview as to your background, how you got into the moulded pulp business.
Eve, that's a that's an interesting question. I started my career many years ago in pulp and paper, and really focused in pulp and paper for quite some time. I have over 30 years experience in pulp, paper, and packaging. And then molded fiber came really as an outcome of that. And I've been working with companies over the last maybe 10 years and really translating that pulp and paper background to molded fiber. And, as we talk through this time together, you'll see a lot of sort of overlap really with pulp and paper technologies and molded fiber. So, yeah, 30 plus years in the industry, PhD in chemistry. I've held a variety of different positions in large companies, small companies. I've consulted, and here I am today.
Thank you ever so much. So I suppose the first question, and I don't think there's anybody better placed to go into this with, is explain to us a little bit what molded pulp is.
Yeah, so we've all probably seen molded pulp packaging because it's been around for quite some time. It's an environmentally friendly packaging product, and it's typically made from wood or non-wood plant fibers. And these materials are formed into shapes such as trays, clamshells, protective inserts, and so forth, using heat and pressure. And they create a variety of different product that we all, I think, will recognize. And as I said in my introduction, I mean, the production of molded fiber products is very similar to that of paper and paperboard, although nowhere near the scale of the of that production. But typically, you take a fiber. Again, it could be a wood fiber, a non-wood fiber. You make a slurry, a very dilute slurry, and then you pass that slurry across a mold, which is then dewatered and dried. And depending on the product application, you can use a variety of paper chemicals. You can add those paper chemicals to impart performance characteristics, or you can put coatings onto the molded fiber product and target your end use performance characteristics. Because the fiber is typically recycled paper or sustainably sourced pulp, molded fiber packaging has a overall much smaller environmental footprint than, say, petroleum-based products. So it's recognized as being a sustainable material. Uh, the molded fiber products used widely in food service, consumer goods, industrial applications, and they're typically used where brands are looking to reduce waste and meet sustainability goals. So I actually did a little homework here going into the webinar and just trying to understand how far back molded fiber goes. And Diana Tweed, who just retired actually, she attributes the first US patent for molded pulp technology to Martin Keyes at Cambridge, Massachusetts, way back in 1903. And I think the first product to come as a result of that patent was the egg carton. So hopefully the audience can see this. The egg carton, it's typically made from recycled fiber, recovered fiber. And if you open it up, it's a rough surface on the inside. You close it and, a relatively smooth surface. You can print on it and so forth. It doesn't have very good water repellency. So it does have limited application, but, it's fine for for storing and packaging eggs, right?
Hmm.
And it's an alternative to expanded polystyrene, which is also typical for egg cartons. On the other side of the sort of quality spectrum, you have a thermoformed product. So the egg carton represents, for those in the business, represents a type 1, 2 type product. And then on the thermoforming side, you have these type 3 products, and these can go into a variety of different areas, but this particular package is for electronics goods. It has a very smooth surface. There's no printing on this, but you can get exceptional print quality on this surface. And then on the inside, you can see a variety of different shapes and cutouts and so forth. So this is a very versatile product. And depending on how you produce it, you can actually impart water repellency through either the addition of paper chemicals or the application of a barrier coating to impart water repellency and oil resistance. We'll talk more about these products as we go forward.
Absolutely. So I suppose take it back to the molded pulp packaging. How is molded pulp as a material changing the packaging market more broadly?
Well, I think it's giving people options,
Hmm.
and it's allowing them to migrate from plastics over to a sustainable product. As I mentioned, the type of fibers that are used are sustainably derived, and the beauty of molded fiber is that it can be recovered and reused. So it does provide a very nice sort of story for companies that are looking to become more sustainable, such in the case of Apple, for example.
Hmm.
Apple, was committed to 100% sustainable packaging. They've pretty much gotten there, and a bulk of their sustainable packaging effort is around molded fiber products. Of course, we'll get more into this, but regulations have really driven
Hmm.
the shift away from plastics over to molded fiber as various countries, nation states, and so forth are making it difficult to have non-sustainable packaging options in the market.
Hmm. And we've sort of touched on it briefly with sort of barriers and what can happen with molded pulp. But where do we see this market going over the next 5 to 10 years? Do we think that molded pulp bottles will take off, or do you see a different future for this material?
So I think a lot of it will be predicated on two things. One is the brand owners. Brand owners have made commitments to sustainability broadly. In the United States, we've seen a bit of a relaxation there because of the current administration really not interested in that sustainability or environmental friendliness and so forth. So we have a bit of a tension here, at least in the U.S. In Europe, of course, we have single-use plastics directive. We have packaging, the waste reduction regulations, and so forth. So there is a regulatory trend that could really accelerate the adoption of molded fiber. We just need to make sure that we stay the course. Now, the U.S., again, a little more complicated because at the state level, like places like California, they are staying the course. We do have bans on expanded polystyrene. We have goals for landfill reduction and so forth. So the molded fiber packaging really plays into that regulatory pull, if you like.
Hmm.
So we've got brand owners on one side, we've got the regulations on the other side, and now it's really up to the industry to step up because ultimately it's a cost performance, and if molded fiber can't meet the objectives, then other technologies will come in.
Hmm.
But we're seeing some real interesting developments, I think, both in the production of molded fiber products and getting the cycle times up, making it much more cost effective. And then we're also seeing some really interesting technologies applied to molded fiber
Mm.
to make them more adaptable and useful in the various end use categories. So it's really an interesting sort of time for sustainable packaging. But I think overall, we're going to see continued growth in this. And typically, the growth has been double digit.
Hmm. And you sort of touched on regulations there, specifically in Europe, at least the PPWR, EPR. How do these regulations affect the molded pulp market? What implications can we expect to see as a result of this legislation on this material?
Well, we'll see continued demand for this material. Assuming that the producers can meet the end use performance of the various categories that are being regulated. Single use plastic, depending on the application, molded fiber fits very nicely.
Hmm.
And then you had mentioned the bottles and so forth. I think right now bottles applied to dry goods make very good sense if they're cost effective. Liquid packaging, on the other hand, I think that's something we have to really wait and see how that evolves because it's a lot more demanding, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, I think the regulations will continue to drive the adoption of molded fiber, and hopefully the U.S. At some point will put in federal mandates, because right now it's a state level sort of mandates. Hopefully, at some point, it's federal, and it gives the manufacturers a lot more certainty about how the future is going to evolve. And I think that's a really important point. It's the regulations are great, but they have to be bulletproof in a way, right?
Hmm.
I mean, we
Hmm.
can't be changing every 6 months or year, or it has to be consistent. And with that, you get a market signal that says, yes, now I'm going to invest. Now I'm going to put in the time, effort to develop technologies that will address this market. But absent that, there's a fair bit of risk for manufacturers to step in and to go to this market.
Absolutely. And you've mentioned a couple of times about sustainable packaging and how molded pulp could be a sustainable option. We've also mentioned barrier coatings and how it has to be the right barrier for molded pulp to be suitable for some product types. How do we reconcile those two things with the development of barrier technologies for different products whilst keeping it as a sustainable option?
Right. Well, there's a lot of barrier technologies out there. And when you're making a molded fiber product, there are materials that you can add to the slurry. Remember, I said that you
Hmm.
take that fiber, you make a slurry. You can add chemicals in there that will impart barrier resistance. Then you can also put coatings on there. But in the spirit of coming up with a sustainable offering, you really need to then look at these materials and say, what is how are these been derived and how will they impact the use and recoverability and reusability and recyclability of those products. Do they contain plastic? Are they bio-based? And so all these considerations need to be made. But ultimately, to meet these regulations, you do have to have a certain performance characteristic, say, in biodegradability or
Hmm.
compostability. And you really need to think through the product engineering, if you like, to achieve those performance characteristics. And of course, it all has to come at a price point
Hmm.
that the market can bear, right? I mean, you can design a product that fulfills all the end use requirements, but if it's not priced appropriately, if the costs are too high, it's not going to be successful in the market.
Absolutely. And I suppose the last thing is I hear an awful lot about paperization of the packaging market and how lots more applications of packaging are moving towards the more paper format. We're seeing a different story almost in the numbers. How do we reconcile those two things, and where does molded pulp sit in relation to that?
Yeah. So depending on the application, um, there's price sensitivity, there's performance characteristics that paper may or may not be able to achieve.
Hmm.
So yes, people want sustainable products, but they also have to have the performance and it has to come at the price. So there's always going to be competition. Look at what, for example, Amazon has done. They have corrugated packaging that they used, quite extensively, but in many applications now, they've gone to essentially paper bags.
Hmm.
So that has displaced, in fact, it's kind of ironic now. You have paper displacing paper, and you use a lot less paper bag to achieve the same volume of packaging as you do a corrugated box.
Hmm.
So it's, we're going to have competition within the paper industry, but we're also, of course, going to have competition with other materials. And material selection is going to be key. And there are some really interesting materials that are not paper-based that are also recyclable, recoverable, reusable, and they provide options. So the paper industry really needs to understand the market application, needs to understand the value proposition, and it needs to really be designing products that can anticipate where the market is going at the price that the market is willing to bear. So it really comes down to that.
That's great. Thank you ever so much for your time today, Alexander. It's been great to chat about molded pulp.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I don't know how we're going to follow up, but be happy to take any questions that come from the audience, and look forward to seeing you again in the near future, Eve.
Absolutely. Thanks ever so much. You've been listening to the Smithers Insight podcast. Subscribe, share, and join us next time to unpack more industry developments.